Hello, and thank you for watching this video about advanced ChatGPT strategies. The inspiration for this video and video series comes from my experience with ChatGPT as I was beginning to learn to use it and saw the tool as I saw a lot of guides about basic information, basic usage advice on how to use ChatGPT, and I thought there has to be more detail out there, and so I've started to explore and provide information for you. So what follows in this video is an interview with my brother, who is also a business owner. He's a graphic designer, and we've been discussing a lot lately ChatGPT, Midjourney, which is an AI art generator, and different ways that you can use these tools at work and in your daily life. And so it's a very interesting interview. I hope you enjoy it. I want to apologize for the video quality. I recorded that with a different computer and realized shortly thereafter, hey, if I'm going to be doing this YouTube thing, I need a more powerful computer. So we're working on that, just to keep a good high level of quality for all of you who are viewing. But I still hope you like the content of this video. There are some screen images that are shared as well, so you can kind of see prompts that are being used and different strategies in this video. Later on in the series, we'll have specific videos that address specific legal topics. Currently, the only videos that are going up today are this video, this interview with my brother, and a set of videos for Dungeons and Dragons that will show you how to use advanced input to get advanced structured output. And so it's just really fascinating to see how different people are using artificial intelligence tools, in particular ChatGPT, which this video guide is about. So again, I hope you enjoy the interview. I hope the choppiness of the video here in the interview isn't too distracting and that you get great benefit from watching. So thanks for coming on, bro. Yeah,
pleasure,
I know that you have been very interested in artificial intelligence, and I have been playing with artificial intelligence a lot. And so I just thought it would be fun to talk to you a little bit about your thoughts and feelings about both Midjourney, but I'm going to focus more on ChatGPT because what I'm doing is I'm recording a series of videos about how to use ChatGPT as a lawyer. I've seen some videos where lawyers log on to ChatGPT and say, well, it can make a simple contract, but it kind of sucks. And so it's not a usable tool. There you go, right? That's the end of the story. I just don't think that's a realistic view. I don't think lawyers, and I haven't found a video, like I've found lots of videos about ChatGPT online, and they're all like, here's the beginner's guide or the beginner's use case or whatever. Nobody's making the advanced guide to how to use this for their specific industry. And so what I wanted to do was make a more of an advanced guide for lawyers to use ChatGPT. And I wanted to get your thoughts while I do it.
Well, your screen is right here.
Your thoughts while I do it.
Yeah, your thoughts. You don't need to look at that one. No, I think you're totally right. There are a lot of videos on how to use ChatGPT, the beginner kind of setting, and it's exactly what you said. The lawyers that you've seen, they get in there and they try a couple prompts, and then they're like, "Oh, this kind of sucks," and they don't really dig into learning the tools, because right now everybody, I mean, this is all new technology to just about everybody except for those people that have built it, right? And so everybody's trying to figure out ways to engage with it and how to use it well. In fact, a friend of mine, talking about Midjourney, she recently changed her name on LinkedIn to her name and then AI Conjurer. That's what she put as her title. And which is fantastic. But she also produces so many amazing things in Midjourney and in other things. But it's like I've told many people, it is the writers, people who write well, are the ones that are doing the best with these tools, in my opinion. And so ChatGPT, you have to learn how to talk to it and get it to engage. I mean, like the example the other night when we were like, write some insults, and it's like, well, I can't be mean. And then we explained the situation about why we wanted the insults and for our Dungeons and Dragons game. as a
Right.
bard for vicious mockery, a spell that it's involved with insults. And so it created some really fun, kind of campy insults that were just good, fun kind of
And that
things.
were game appropriate.
And
Yeah.
were game appropriate. And so, you have to direct these technologies to what the focus you want them to be. So I think your lawyers gave up too quickly, in my opinion. They
Well, so
they've looked
yeah.
at it and said, "Oh yeah, it does okay, but it's not making the multi-million-dollar contract to sell some business to
Right,
and
right,
and it
right, right,
will
right.
at some point it will do that because those contracts will be available online."
Well, so I had a couple of things in mind that I wanted to talk to you about, and the first of which
Shoot.
is specificity, and then also delegation. So, and I think that this is a helpful discussion to have when it comes to AI, because also as a business owner, you are learning, and we have started to have those conversations about what it takes to effectively delegate something. And then I also wanted to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about kind of some of the limitations around GPT. So to effectively delegate something, I have learned as a business owner that you have to give very specific instructions. And I used to avoid this because I didn't want to micromanage. I wanted to let people, be themselves, do their own thing. But I have learned over time that the more specific I am with the instruction I give, the better results I get. And that's with inputting information to a human and expecting a result back, right? And so,
Right, right.
what are your thoughts about that when it comes to ChatGPT? Essentially, it will be an assistant that we delegate tasks to. And so, how do you feel about that?
Well, like you just said, I think you're totally right. We have to give, and I love that word specificity. And we use
Mm-hmm.
it a lot in CSS coding in for websites. There's a certain level of specificity that you have to dedicate if you want things to function properly. And it goes the same thing with humans and with AI in this example. And with humans, it's obviously our learned experience shades
Right.
or gives us a typical type of interpretation with what directions that we've been given. And the same thing with AI. It has learned, quote, learned something, but it's only learned in a certain way and what it's been fed. In the example of ChatGPT, it doesn't know anything about 2022 and things that came out in
Yeah. Right.
2022. And so, like I mentioned a couple of days ago, I had an argument with it about Midjourney and it being an AR platform, and it was like, no, it's a behavioral health, it's a behavioral assessment platform, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right. Right.
And then those constraints, and we've had a number of chats. I love limits and constraints too
So
because
I want to
I
talk
think,
about the constraints as well. We'll get there.
yeah, and so it all comes into that specificity. These are the constraints. This is what you don't want it to act as something that you don't want the technology to act as a circus clown. You want it to act
Right.
as a lawyer, or you want it to act as a social media expert.
So let's get
So
into that for a second. So one of the things, and I do believe that it's helpful that if you want to use Chat GPT well, that you should also get on and use some of the generative art programs as well, like Midjourney or maybe Stable Diffusion
yeah,
or something, because I think that there's skills that are overlap and lessons that overlap between the two AI tools. So um, to get a specific kind of image, you have to give it a specific kind of input. And as I've poked around with Midjourney and played with that tool, one of the things that I noticed when I was looking through the community showcase was I'd see these extremely, they looked like pictures. And I said, well, how do you get that? Like, how do you tell it to give you that level of specificity? And with Midjourney, it can happen by accident. Like you can ask for, show me a picture of a field, and then it might show you one of the options looks like it's an actual photo or a picture. But I saw a couple
true.
of examples that to me were fascinating where the prompt included, picture of whatever. It was picture of a woman in her 20s on a sunny afternoon, taken from a Canon EOS R6, aperture size
Yep.
this, focal length this. And so I'm all like, whoa, the specificity in that instruction. And in fact, what's interesting is that you don't have to be that specific. If you say taken from this kind of camera, all of these pictures have metadata. And so I don't know, but I assume that a program like Midjourney, when it looks at the images, is also looking at the metadata. And so it must be able to see Well, every single picture that was taken with that camera, with that focal length that I have in my database, I can make it look exactly like that. And so that to
Right.
me is mind blowing. That level of specificity allows you to get a very detailed and a very certain kind of picture. And so when we look at people drafting prompts for ChatGPT, the prompts that seem to work best are the ones that give a similar level of specificity on the language side as well. And so that's how you start to get better and better results from ChatGPT.
Exactly. When you tell it write in the style of, it
Yeah.
will it will take that. And I did an exercise last week with that where uh, I I had it look at my website, and it
That's
reviewed the
fun.
copy I put in it, and it said, "Well, here I'll pull it up, and let's
You're going to
see,
share your chat?
personal writing style."
Can you share your
I
screen?
can. I don't know. Can I share my screen? Let's see.
It might let you. I don't know,
Personal.
actually.
Well, here I'll do a Chrome tab. It looks like it will let me. So
Cool.
here's the tab. Can you see that?
I'm going to make it the only screen. So your Chrome tab is now showing in the video. Go ahead.
Okay. Uh, no, that was. Yes, here it is. Okay, so put my website copy in here, and I told it, acting as an expert copywriter, analyze the following copy for writing style, voice, and tone, because I don't know what my voice, and tone is. And so it came in and said, oh, well, um, here's the style. You are well organized. Your subheadings, thorough. The voice is authoritative and confident. Position yourselves as experts in the field. You're enthusiastic with a passion for the work. And then the professional tone is just like, but not overly formal or stiff, with a sense of approachability, upbeat, and a sense of collaboration and partnership. So now I can take that, and when I want to write a piece of copy, I will say something like, acting as a professional copywriter, write a blog or a bit of copy that is business-like but not overly formal and stiff, with a sense of collaboration and partnership. And then it will write a somewhat nice. Now, again, being said, there's nothing that I have just taken from ChatGPT and loaded to whatever I'm using. I'm using it more for ideation in the capacity that I use it in, or I'll edit it heavily. There's only been one piece that I edited 2 words and said, this is pretty fantastic, and moved on. So,
Now you've been using
but I'm going to stop sharing.
ChatGPT not only for web content, but like primarily your social media posts, right? To kind of help you get through those quicker. Is that accurate?
Correct. I use it to generate ideas and wording, to help me march through the process at a quicker rate. Um, I'm an okay writer at present. I think I will improve with using this technology because it gives me ideas about how to go about it. And I, in the past, I've told my writer buddies, the ones that I work with closely over the last 10 years or so, you guys are the ones that taught me English and how to write.
Your marketing writer buddies?
uh,
Yeah.
right, because they they and it goes again back to the specificity. They wrote with the AP style guide, and we followed these particular guidelines, and this is the and I like those particular guidelines, so it helped me identify how to write better.
Now,
So
I want to jump in and add something there when it comes to legal writing. So I have obviously been playing with it.
uh,
And in my
right,
video series, what I'm going to do is show people how you can write a legal brief with ChatGPT, how you can write a contract, an extensive contract, not just a short contract with ChatGPT. And that's my plan for those videos. But it's interesting that you mentioned AP style format and those kinds of things. So one of the catches, one of the difficulties in using the tool for legal writing is with legal writing, you tend to need to cite your work. And that's also been one of the biggest problems that people have with
fair.
ChatGPT is they're like, we can't show the homework that's happening in the back end. So what's fascinating is I have learned and figured out how to
Ooh,
get it to what?
cite
What? Yeah,
some work? Have you got
I
it to
have.
cite work?
Yeah, so I'll ask it to write something for me, and then I'll say, now cite your sources. And the first time I did it, it wrote similar copy and then provided websites and sources that it got from. And then I said, no, 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 no. I need you to do this again, but I need you to cite legal sources, including case law. And then after every conclusory sentence, I need you to provide the citation in Blue Book format, which is the lawyer's standard format for citing, case law and whatnot.
Right,
And
right,
then
right.
what it spat out was exactly what I needed. I couldn't have written it better myself. With
And
the
it wrote it for
citations.
you in five
Oh
seconds.
yeah, 5 seconds, right? And it wrote these rule statements for me with proper legal citation. And so, and there was one case that seemed made up. I checked it. It's a legitimate case, but it's not about what ChatGPT thought it was. And so that's the piece where,
Hmm.
the lawyer working together with the AI. But the fact that I got it to spit out like 95% correct information with legal citations, I'm the only person I know who's been able to do that. And that's why I've decided I was going to make this video series and say, look, guys, this is a real, legit, usable tool, can save you hours and hours of time and effort and work. And so, yeah, I think it's something that needs to be talked about.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with what you just said about the you have to review it. You can't just go,
Yeah,
yeah, this is good. I'm going to load it up, because you never know what that citation means, because it doesn't. It just like a person, it's going to interpret one thing one way and see it one way, and you have to. It brings to mind trust but verify. you know, so
yeah. I like that. Trust but verify with Chat GPT.
yeah. So, yeah, that is fantastic. When you started into that, talking about the citations, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. With they, I'm sure you've seen the articles about New York City school board saying no ChatGPT, we won't allow this, and uh, but were kids writing essays, but were they writing them without citations? And then how can you get it to do that now
So
with
let me actually talk about that. And I do plan to create like a separate video, just propose. I mean, maybe this is a little high-minded on my part, but I was thinking, we should talk about the regulatory framework that should surround GPT, but its uses and all of that kind of thing.
oh yeah,
I
for
would
sure.
say that, like you mentioned, ChatGPT has a very high likelihood of making you a better writer, right? And
Oh
as
yeah,
I've talked to
yeah,
one
for
of the
sure.
other lawyers in the office about it as well, he was saying, oh, yeah, because you get opportunities to see multiple ways of writing it. And then you can choose the word choices that you like and make good choices about the word choices, the grammar, the sentence structure. And frankly, as a tool to help teach writing better, ChatGPT could be very, very useful. And so I think it's perhaps wrongheaded or backwards looking to say, no, we can't use this tool, right? Like, I remember a moment in middle school when someone told me, it was my middle school English teacher said, all of the papers that you write in college, you will write in cursive by hand, and you will never have a calculator with you at all times, right? Like, come on, give me a break. Like, it's just not true. None of
Well,
that is true.
there was a I can't remember where I heard it, but it was so funny. It was so true. So all through school, we're told not to collaborate, not to do work together, because it's called cheating. And
Right.
yet, when we
That's
get in the
true.
business world, we're all told to collaborate and work together to accomplish the goal. And then these type of technologies, I think, like you said, it's wrongheaded. They're doing a disservice to their students, because today's technology will be tomorrow's norm.
Right.
And this is disruptive right now, but tomorrow, tomorrow, 10 years from now, when those kids are out of school, it this is going to be the tool they refer to. I mean, as you showed, we are already dependent upon these. I mean, Pew
Right.
Research has 90% of adults in the United States have a smart device in their pocket that they use on a regular basis to look up information and uh, find these things out. So, how is this new technology going to benefit us tomorrow, where we're just kind of muddling around in the mud right now with it? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
it's
I
an
think it's
interesting thought.
Yeah, I think that it's fascinating to kind of consider what direction this could all go. But one of the things that I do hope is that schools kind of quickly grasp onto this. I think part of the resistance is
Yeah.
this idea that people won't learn to write. But hopefully, again, we'll start to see it for what it is, as a tool to help you write better, right? Like, go ahead.
Well, there's where you talk about not learning how to write. So there's a story, and I need to look up this mythos to verify it completely and really understand the structure of this. But there in there's a story that I read ages ago, and it talks about writing and how writing came to be in Egypt, hieroglyphs and whatnot. Where prior to that, really, our knowledge, the bank of human knowledge, was transferred by oral histories, and
That's true.
oral historian, when they started scratching stuff into stone, was like, this is going to ruin the world. We won't be able to remember anything because we're writing. And and where, yes, that is true, but look at the breadth of human knowledge now, where we've written all these things down. And I mean, you look at it, I mean, you could say the same with disruptive technology like video. Now there is a breadth of human knowledge larger than the Library of Alexandria online at a just a quick search to figure out anything from plunging your bathroom toilet to fixing a car to learning how to run AI to improve your life. So it all these technologies, yes, we're losing out on something, but does the benefit outweigh what we're losing out on? And are we truly losing it because we still communicate orally with each other and we still remember things, but we relegate our memory to the things that are truly important to us rather than just the random things that we,
Well,
you know.
or the things that are more meaningful or fun for us, right? Like,
Right.
everybody knows how to tell a story. Everybody knows how to tell a joke. These are the things that we want to remember. Tanya just started using her digital calendar like more. And it was kind of funny because now that she's using her calendar more, there are things that she's just not telling me because she doesn't remember them off the top of her head. And so it's actually become a little bit disruptive to our lives. And it's not like the digital calendar hasn't been around for forever, right? It's just one of those new habits
Right.
that she started on. And so it's kind of funny how that has affected us. But I do definitely think that, in the long run, it's going to be better to use that digital camera, excuse me, not camera, calendar, and we'll be able to share it and be more on top of things ultimately. But in the short term, there are going to be hiccups along the way. I think the same is true for artificial intelligence. And I don't think ChatGPT is the end all and be all. I mean, I'm excited to see what Google Bard comes out with, frankly. Very excited.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is an amazing tool. I hope to keep using it. But I'm also excited to see what
Right.
else develops in our capitalist society filled with competition and other options. So
That's fair, and the technology is only going to improve, and I'm excited to see what happens when they finally do insert 2022 into ChatGPT or any other softwares that are limited by a time frame. So
mhm.
you know, and that's one of the wonderful, scary, interesting thoughts is, they've put information into this from 2021, but they put the breadth of human knowledge into it. Have they,
Well,
which not
it's,
currently isn't possible. I
one of
don't
the
think.
amazing things though about ChatGPT is this is, and so I do want to talk about this for a second, is its ability to be an expert in a variety of topics at the drop of a hat. So back to the
Right.
specificity argument, right? So you and I have watched some videos together and shared some links. And so I know that one of the examples that's out there is you could ask ChatGPT to give you a workout program and it'll give you some exercises. But if you ask it to
Right.
act as a personal trainer and then you give it your own stats and say, develop a personalized workout program for me, then what you're going to get is going to be significantly better. And, I also am aware that, what is it? None of us, no human being alive could ever watch all that will be on YouTube, right? Like more than a bajillion hours of video are uploaded every second, right? And so, but the thing is about
30
AI,
82 years of content is loaded to YouTube. The last stat that I heard, daily, 82
that's
years.
crazy. That's crazy. No, so
Anyway,
my
go
point
on.
here is though, is that an artificial intelligent computer could watch all of YouTube and could tell us what's most important, or could guide us to recommendations for TV shows or videos that we might like better than we could figure out ourselves, right? And so that to me is what's amazing about ChatGPT, is that it will be a better writer. It's the same argument that they make for self-driving cars, which I want to talk about regulations here in a bit, why I think they're important and all of that kind of thing. But there's this argument there that a self-driving car is going to be an infinitely better driver than any human very soon, because, while I can only have, so many years of driving experience, multiply that times 100 or times 1,000 or times 1,000,000 for any self-driving car. They're going to have 20 years of experience times 100 million people. It will be a better driver than I will ever be, period. Right. And so there's this, I guess, mental leap that we have to take to accept artificial intelligence as well. On the other side of that coin, though, is people pushing too quickly or not recognizing certain things and risking human life or human sanity as a result of pushing technology forward, particularly when it comes to like car safety. Like, I read one report about artificial intelligence in cars. They didn't train it to look out for jaywalkers, and so a car that was self-driving had hit somebody because it had only been trained to look out for crosswalks and people crossing at crosswalks, not people crossing at unexpected places, right? And so that's obviously a problem that a human wouldn't make, right? And so there's that caveat to, yes, it will be a better driver, but also it's going to make dumb mistakes that a human would not make, and we'll have to work through some of those problems.
And that goes into the constraints that you give it, and us, we're creating this technology. I mean, and humans, we're all flawed, and we can't think of everything. So someone didn't think, hey, we might need to have this thing look out for jaywalkers and worry about that. So, they didn't think about it. And the same with a number of things. I mean, think of any scenario, and I like to, I try not to be pessimistic by nature, but anytime there's a decision that is risky, I like to try to think of 5 of the worst outcomes that could possibly happen.
That's a good call.
And then backtrack the decision and go, okay, is that the worst thing that can happen? Oh, great. Then that's the decision I'm going to make. And, so we have to look at this technology. Yeah, it's going to be great. And like you just said, they're going to have years upon years and years of experience. It's like, it made me think just now of any of those websites that you see. We have combined 120 years of experience. Well, each of those individual people's in that business only has
nobody actually has 120 years of experience.
Right. Yes, they're going to bring their minds together and they're going to have that collaboration. And that's what I think, we should be doing with AI, is having a collaboration, not just this is how we're going to do it.
Not a full-on replacement. So, and part of the reason that it can't or shouldn't replace, in particular, I would say law, of course, is one of those areas where a lot of writing is required, a lot of analysis of words happens. And so I could see AI moving very heavily into the space. And yet at the same time, because of unintentional biases and how AI can be programmed, I think it's very important to have human guardrails on the use of this technology for the foreseeable future. So, but I wanted to talk a little bit about constraints. So you have a book that you're working on, I know, Thinking Inside the Box, and how creativity loves constraints. In my experience with ChatGPT, there are a couple of constraints. Both of which I find a little disappointing. I also kind of wonder out loud, like, if they are unintentional security features as well, because as we learn to use about it. So ChatGPT, even within a conversation, I've had some conversations go quite long, will forget after about 3,000 or 4,000 words. It doesn't, and I looked this up because it couldn't refer to something from earlier we discussed. I'm talking about the ChatGPT as a we. Something I discussed with ChatGPT.
That's fine. We're going to humanize it because that's just who we are, and we're going to humanize it. So tell me more.
Yeah, no, I already humanized it. And what's interesting is when I realized that it wasn't remembering, I did feel like just a short twinge of loss. I was like, oh no, it doesn't remember. And so that's when I Googled and found, go ahead.
The AI has memory issues, and we're feeling sad about it.
It's true. It's true. Well, so then I Googled and realized that it only could remember so much, right? So that was part of I forget how OpenAI
Well,
categorizes it, but it only has a memory of so many tokens, which turns out to be about 3,000 words. That's what it's posted somewhere.
yeah. Well, and one thing that's interesting that I've found is that yes, those 3,000 words. But if you're good about setting it up, say, let's say I want 10 ideas about something. Okay, I want you to write a post about each of those 10 ideas in this
Yeah.
format. It doesn't do a great job, and it's hit that 3,000 limit. But you have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can say, referring back to number 1, and it will look back through that thread and then come back with that content in
So
a new
ultimately,
way.
I got
And
I
so,
got a thread so long it wouldn't do that.
oh, really? Even with
Yeah.
numbers?
Even
Interesting.
with that, it got so the thread was so long that it just couldn't even refer back to the conversation. Now, maybe that was an error, and if so, I'd love for somebody to reach out to me and explain that to me from OpenAI. But
Yeah, that's interesting
yeah,
because I thought it
because it
would.
couldn't refer to its own words previously.
Now, yesterday when I did that, it locked up at number 7. I think it wrote too much content, and I was
So
like, okay,
so that's probably what it was. It probably got to that limit where it could no longer remember. Um,
crap.
so then let's talk about the other limit that I've found or run into, and I've done the word count multiple times to double check myself. It won't spit out more than 595 words at a time. On a couple of occasions, I got it
Interesting.
to write out 596 words, but it wouldn't go beyond 595, 596 words.
And that 6 words was it dragging itself across the finish line.
Right, right. That's exactly what it was. And period. No,
Period.
I've had it cut off a couple times in the middle of a sentence. And so that to me, probably understanding that constraint is my biggest argument against all these people that are like, well, it can't write a contract. And I'm like, no, you can't just ask it to write a 20-page contract about a specific issue. But what you can do
Yeah,
is you
break
can
it
have
up.
it help you write. You can break it up. You can have it write each section for you. And so then your job as the human is the person to guide the contract, to guide the specifics of the contract, to guide the organization of the contract, to structure it. And so one of my videos is going to show exactly how I picked a non-disclosure agreement. So we're going to draft like a multi-page non-disclosure agreement, just something, generic but common, and see how it does, and how quickly it can do it, because I have a feeling it's going to move pretty darn quick. And I've
Oh
already
yeah,
done
for sure.
some basic testing on it. But yeah, I mean, it'll help you generate the sections. It'll help you. And then there's a big difference between asking it to just write a section versus asking it to write as, and I did a couple of different tests because everybody has their law review. As somebody working on the Harvard Law Review or the Columbia Law Review, or as a Virginia lawyer, you get different kinds of responses from it as well.
Right.
And so that's been fascinating to kind of see how it analyzes prompts with that extra specificity.
Right, right. And what's neat about that type of application is that there is so much content online that it can refer to, or that has been fed to it to refer from, that it can generate those things pretty easily, I imagine, and in
So
that format.
let's talk about a couple of other constraints. So I know that you can give it a URL. I've started to play with the summarize command, and
Mm,
and I've given it URLs. It's not very good at summarizing case law yet. So as a lawyer, what you'd love to be able to do is to say, check out this case. Here's a link. Give me the best holdings, and then write a paragraph with proper blue book citation format about the primary holdings on this issue. Right now, I think we're about one hop, step, and a jump away from that. Like I know that they're training GPT-4, right? That's being whispered about, and so it's supposed to be released later this year. And ChatGPT is technically just GPT 3.5 or trained on top of that. And so I could see that being possible soon. but I've had difficulty getting it to look at specific websites and getting truly usable information from it, unless the
Well,
content is less than like 1,000 words or so.
well, like you said, this technology is moving rapidly,
Yeah,
and Midjourney, when I first got onto it, the art was interesting, but very amorphous, and it was okay. And people that managed it, they were able to pull off some really interesting things, but the quality wasn't really there like it is now. And you talk about earlier in our conversation, you talked about the specificity of the prompts in there. And just the other day, I wanted some people in a business suit for the cover of a post that I was doing, and so I did. Two individuals, one male, one female, on a runway catwalk at a Ralph Lauren fashion show, editorial, photorealistic, blah blah blah, and it made these two fashion model people in business suits. Even the hands were pretty good, which these programs are terrible at hands, um, just because hands are hard to draw in the first place, even for humans. But it came up with this really cool image that I used for that thing. So definitely the specificity and the quality is going to improve as time goes on. Like you're saying, ChatGPT 4, what's in store with that. And I'm excited to see where they go, because Midjourney's now version, you can do version 4. I think 4 is the cap. And just the amazing quality of the work that it can put out now is phenomenal, as long as you're prompting it with specificity. And again, it really comes down to that specificity, because if you put a one word prompt, it's going to do some interesting stuff, and maybe you'll get lucky. Um, so yeah, but again, it goes into that interpretation, and it's us learning. Prompt engineering is the word that I'm hearing a lot now for
prompt engineering. Yeah,
people
that's
that
the
are
phrase I've heard as
people
well.
that are be working in this sector and learning how to make the best prompts. Again, I think the writers have hit their heyday. If they can really tap into this technology, they can make it do leaps and bounds beyond
Well,
what everybody
and
else
what's
is doing.
fascinating is you could go into ChatGPT. I saw one person play around with this example going back and forth, where they'd go into ChatGPT and describe in a lot of detail and say, "Give me the prompt for Midjourney to create this,"
Yeah,
and then copy and paste the prompt into Midjourney, and yeah, get a better, more specific image than they would have gotten had they just kind of tried to come up with it on their own. It's fascinating. So
yeah, it's really interesting, the cyclical nature of this. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have an AI write a prompt for me so that I can make another AI create a piece of art for me.
yeah, I mean, eventually. So the let's talk a little bit about um, interoperability, which I'm sure there are smarter people than I looking at the technical side of things. But I also wanted to bring up this and the regulation stuff, and then we'll have been talking for about 40 minutes. Maybe we should jump off. But um, no, so the first thing that occurs to me is I've been a long time WordPress user, and I wouldn't call myself a web developer, but I know how to do a thing or two with some code and some CSS and HTML and connect different tools. And I know that a lot of tools landed on this REST API, which allows a lot of these technologies to talk to each other. And so one of the things that has already occurred to me is, what are the people in the AI space doing to make tools interoperable, interconnected, and in a way that's truly fantastic? And I haven't seen anything. People are probably working on this, but I just don't know what they're doing. Have you heard or read anything about that?
I know there's some connectivity in that ChatGPT is being uh, run
They've
through
got an API
APIs
of their
to,
own. Yeah.
yeah, and you ask ChatGPT to write you an API for itself, and it will.
Yeah.
and,
No, I
and
have done that as well.
yeah, and so there are a number of technology I think that are pulling in. I can't remember which ones are. I remember some people talking about that, and they mentioned several platforms that are using it. So, like a lot of these AI platforms for naming things and for other things are utilizing the API to from ChatGPT and kind of piggybacking on what they've learned. So, I think it's going to cut through a number of sectors, not just code or HTML. I mean, I was I was raised on uh, making a website by hand coding it, so
Yeah.
I've had a lot of
Right. Yeah.
experience.
Tables and all of that stuff. And yeah. No, I know what you're talking about.
Tables, and then the epiphany of CSS, which just made it so much
Mind
more
blowingly
interesting.
awesome. Right.
Yeah, and but and now you can just go onto ChatGPT and say write X web page for me in HTML, and it'll probably spit out something pretty good. Now I haven't tried it, but I imagine it's pretty awesome because I've
Well, the
seen a
more
number
specific
of
your
people,
prompt, the better it is.
right, writing some code to do that. But I mean, all of this is code anyway. All of our programs that we're using, all of our uh, the Adobe software, that's all code. It's just they've specified it to do a certain thing.
Right.
So
So
yeah,
I
I
wanted to
think
jump away from that. Oh, go ahead.
no, I think they're just going to, this technology is going to cut through a lot of things and just be
Yeah.
really interesting. I mean, I can only imagine what they're already thinking of to help automate manufacturing plants, so that the robots that are, doing XYZ work already do it. And you talk about AI technology in cars and driving cars. What are their applications in farming or mining or other industries
Right.
are available
More
for
productive.
this?
I think the connectivity between these AI things and robots and devices that are actually in the real world are that and so that brings me to the regulation framework. So I was watching the John Oliver skit this week is about artificial intelligence. It's a good one. You should check it out. But he
Okay.
mentions regulations about but no real like policy positions or solutions. But we should be regulating this, and we should be, and I agree. I mean, I think companies don't have the greatest history of thinking in the best interests of the world, but they're thinking of shareholder value, and that's what a company's supposed to do. So I don't take issue with that. But obviously, as a society, we need to be thinking about, okay, well, how do we protect ourselves? Elon Musk in a lot of videos is out there talking about how he sounds like he's scared of AI when he talks about it. He's like, they're coming for us already, and they haven't even been made yet, right? But so we know that there's concern and there's reason for concern. One of the things that John Oliver mentioned in his skit was that um, the computer doesn't show its work. And so, and I do plan to interview Todd too. I'm going to reach out to him, but and ask him this because I don't know the answer. But I would hope that these programmers put in place some kind of metadata behind each generation, so that each generation of text, so that we could see where it, so we can see its homework, so we can see what it did or how it arrived at the conclusion to create those word choices. You know what I mean? Because one of the issues is it's
Yeah,
so
I
advanced
know what you
already
mean.
that we don't know how it drew the conclusions it drew. But I think that that's an important like legal and technological guardrail that we should put up. We should be able to see how it arrived at its conclusions every single time.
And that's a fair request. I don't know the viability of that request, and here's why.
Neither do I. Neither do
So,
I. But
here's why. So my kids have always complained, and I imagine yours will too, when they get into the higher grades and they get to the point where they're doing
they
math.
don't want to show their
Uh,
work.
all all my kids are very good at doing it in their heads. Now
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I have to write it down, but they've come up with the solution. But the teacher's asking them to show their work, and you're as a person who grew up on web code, HTML code, and not being giving the best practices from an organization that did that, being in that wild in space of just writing code, it wasn't until later on where they're like, you need to comment in your code.
Right.
And
Commenting in
if
code
you
becomes
ask,
very important.
well, let's ask, and this is all me supposing, this is all supposition, but if you asked 100 coders, do you comment your work? I'll bet you 90% of them do not.
Nah, I think coders have gotten. But I mean, I bet professional coders. Like, I bet if you ask Todd, I bet he comments his work. Like good ones comment
I
their work.
I would love to hear that answer. I
Well,
would
I mean,
love to hear
because
that answer.
so especially for people who work in large organizations, it's impossible not to code. Like
Well,
I'm thinking that if I were employing coders and one of them didn't comment his work, he would be fired pretty soon, because you just can't do that in a large organization when you have a large code set.
but here's also the thing. What tools are they using that's just generating code for them? So with
Right.
WordPress, we're not coding anymore. The code is there. It's just we've manipulated it with a WYSIWYG on our side to lay things
Yeah, a lot
out.
of times with
And so
visual
there's no
builders. True.
comments. Right. And it's the same for me. Like I try very hard when I'm building an Illustrator graphic to label my things so that it's more a courtesy really of just giving
Yeah.
when I hand that off to another designer so they know where those things are. But a
Right.
lot of people don't go into those best practices because they've been just freelancers and they've always just done the work themselves. And so they know
Right. Yeah, I
intricately the
suppose
work they've
anybody
done.
who works in an
And so,
organization or who's used to working within a group will comment, but those who are not may
so
not.
right. And so I would be interested in, I mean, Todd's experience is definitely working in mostly groups. So I would be interested in his answer about, do they comment and how often they do that and what does that look like? Because obviously the ChatGPT code is not commented. It just spits out the
I
exact
bet if you
code.
asked it to provide comments on what the code is doing, I bet it would. But what
It
I'm
probably
saying
would.
though is, like, when you take a digital picture, that digital picture isn't just the image; it's the metadata behind it. And
Oh,
my
yeah,
thought
that's
is
fair.
that, Midjourney, ChatGPT, all of these programs should generate some kind of metadata with each generation of content. Um,
Yes, there should be
Another
a tag on it.
Right, right. To say this is so the computer can say this is how I arrived at this conclusion. And I can't I can't imagine a world where that wouldn't be helpful to the engineers as well in training and retraining it. Um, there's another whole piece to this conversation which I'm going to have with some lawyers, which is the copyright issue. James and I have been debating
Uh,
how the Copyright Office actually just rejected copyright for some Midjourney created images and said, no, you can't get copyright on this, which I think is
oh,
stupid.
interesting.
I think it's so incredibly
Well,
wrong. And
well,
yet, go ahead.
here is my thought on that frontier, and it is a frontier. That is interesting that they said no copyright. But early on in the Midjourney thing, there was a person who posted that they won an art competition with a piece of art that
Yeah,
they
I know.
generated
I
from
know what you're
Midjourney,
talking
and
about. I
it's
know the
beautiful.
art. Hmm.
It is a pretty piece, and it I liked it for various reasons, uh, but it also brings to question what is art, and what is that inspiration, and where does that intersection reside with, because and I and then this I hate some modern art just because it's dumb. And like there was a piece that we saw at the high, and it was just this square, and its name was red, and it was red,
Just
and I'm
driving you
like,
crazy, right?
anybody and their blind goat could make that.
Right.
And it's like, really, is this a piece of art? No, it's a square that I could insert in my child's build a block thing and call it good. So where is that art lie in both writing? Because writing is art, in my opinion. It is. I mean, we read
For sure.
art all the time for novels and those kind of things. So where is the does the art, um, versus this,
Well, so
technology
for
enhanced art lie?
for me, and this is where I'm thinking too, is Chat GPT generated words, are those copyrightable, right? And so for me, there's this doctrine in copyright law that it's not sweat of the brow. It's that, the amount of effort and work doesn't make it copyrightable. It's the I think there's even a case law about like how the lightning strikes, or even just hitting the button on a camera, like the person holding the camera owns the copyright to that. Or not necessarily, right? Like if somebody else is taking a picture for you and you're telling them how to position everything and then they take the picture, you're the one in control, and so you're the one creating the art. And the way that I think about it, especially after having played with Midjourney and creating a prompt and seeing how particular some people are in their prompts and they get certain results, like a lot more effort can go into Midjourney style art than people realize. And so
For
I
sure.
definitely think it merits copyright protection. But that is an argument that I'm sure I will pick with other lawyers later, and also
Well,
include
and
in this video series.
it's worthy to be picked because it is a question. I mean, the the possibility for iterations too is so fantastic. And do you copyright all of those iterations? And it brings to mind the rage in NFTs, non fungible tokens,
Yeah,
with these graphics and art, and how they were making all billions of these monkeys, and you could create your own monkey with a particular hat and sunglasses, and that would be your token. But what is the functionality of it? And for art, the functionality is enjoyment for the most part. But there was a phrase in creative circles: if it doesn't sell, it's not creative, right? So
right.
what does it provide some use beyond just the feeling and the emotion of it? Um, and I think a lot of good design is coming out of it. Good art is coming out of it on both ChatGPT and the art side of things. But it does bring up a lot of questions. Where those regulations, where the copyright law, plagiarism concerns, all of these things, where does that reside and lie? I mean, I think it's interesting, the current lawsuit with Stable Diffusion and Getty Images, where they're you know Stable Diffusion fed their library of images to their AI, and now it's creating these things. But as a human, I could have looked at each one of those images too and drawn some inspiration from it, but not plagiarize them. And I go through the web daily looking for inspiration for, like yesterday, I was looking up inspiration for a poster I want to create with just text. And so I was like, typography poster. And so I was
Right.
looking through posters, and I captured a couple of those to put in my inspiration folder to look at later when I'm really going to dive into that process. So where does that, and this is where you guys are going to come in, where does that balance lie
Well,
with these AIs taking inspiration from content that's
maybe
available
I'll invite
online?
you to my conversation with the copyright lawyers that I want to invite. I have a
Oh, I
couple in
want to.
mind, and because you know, taking the screenshots is probably a copyright violation. Like saving those because somebody else owns that copyright, and now you looking at it and then coming up with your own thing, probably not a copyright violation. Like bookmarking the web page, looking at it later, but actually taking a screenshot, saving in a folder might very well be a copyright violation. And then when it
Well,
comes to like stable
here,
diffusion, looking at now, when a computer looks at an image, it has to make a copy. And when you look at an image, you're not making a copy, right? It's not fixed in any
well,
medium or
here's the
anything.
thing.
So there's a difference.
But here's the thing with Getty Images: you can download for free a comp of any of those images,
Right, right,
and I can
right.
store them on my computer. I can store every last one of them and use them for reference. So, where does that balance lie? Because now,
Yeah, no,
like
it's fair
like you
enough.
said, AI may make a copy, but their memory is larger. They have servers that are going to maintain more
Right,
memory of
right.
the
Does it
stuff, where
undermine the
my
purpose of the person
memory.
having posted the image or provided that policy to download a comp?
Right. So my memory is a little more short term, and so I have to go back and refer to that folder if I want that same inspiration or different inspiration. Where all they have to do is access the folder on server 4452,
Right, right.
XYZ database. Where
File
I have
path,
to
yeah.
go, oh, what was the file path? Where was that folder? So, I mean, I have a library of just interesting content that I found over the years that I've really loved the design, and refer back to it frequently to gather inspiration. And we talked about
I
my
would bet
thumbnails
that
for
you're
my
not
videos.
alone. Yeah, I would bet that you're
Oh
not
no,
alone. I
I
bet
am not.
all designers do this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that was a good chat, man. I appreciate you taking the time. It's
Oh, my,
such a brave new
been a
field,
fun
brave new
chat.
adventure. I'm excited to kind of see what happens, but I wanted to be part of the conversation, especially since I've seen lawyers kind of look at the tool and then give up. I think that's not the right approach. I think this is the time to dig in. And so I wanted to
Yeah.
show, and I'll have some other videos that show how a lawyer can dig in and actually generate usable contracts, usable documents. Um, And then, I mean, everybody already has seen that this is usable for marketing content, but I think it's also usable today with ChatGPT, not the next generation, for a variety of writing tasks that you might use in the legal profession. So I'm going to be making those videos. I'll post them and maybe we talk again about it later.
Yeah, let's do it. I would welcome any conversation about this. Just one to learn more and just to, like you said, be part of the conversation because it is fascinating. And if you're not part of the conversation, how can you guide the efforts or the ship? You know, so I'd rather have one hand on the wheel with the other 4 million people hand on the wheel as well to give it a nudge when I can.
Well, and to potentially influence, maybe somebody out there will see this and say, oh, that's how you could use the tool. So anyway,
Right.
thanks again.
I would love to help anybody figure out any of these things because it is fascinating. And, that's my personal mantra is how can I help you achieve success today? So
Thanks again for watching that interview. As you can tell, there are a number of fascinating issues surrounding artificial intelligence, surrounding legal issues like copyright and those kinds of things, but also just surrounding its usage generally and the potential applications for artificial intelligence in a wide variety of industries, including in the legal industry and how you can use that there. Like I said, and as I mentioned in the interview, I've been exploring a lot of these uses and have actually begun to use ChatGPT, frankly, in my daily practice of law and my daily skills that I implement throughout the day here at the firm. So if you are interested in this topic, please like and subscribe because additional videos will be coming out about this topic very soon. And I will be sharing with you specific prompts that I use to help me generate structured output for legal purposes. For now, just kind of honor the coming release of the Dungeons and Dragons movie. We've gone ahead and released our Dungeons and Dragons prompts, which has been kind of a fun project. But frankly, it has taught me so much about how to get structured data out of ChatGPT so I could run that game on the fly. But I also can now already see uses that I could use structured data out of ChatGPT in a very rapid fashion in a legal setting. And so we'll go more into that. Like and subscribe this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can see more as we publish more about really interesting ways that you can use ChatGPT in your business, in your law office. And we'll be seeing you here around on our channel at Tingen Law.